Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Player First podcast with your co-host, Coach Leo, out in London with the Football Domain Academy, and myself, Coach Fernando, here in the U.S. in New York with Tiempo Soccer Academy. If this is your first time watching us, we're here on a mission to help as many players around the world as possible, help educate them, help inspire them, help get them to the next level. As well as the families of those club players. So before we dive deep into today's episode, Coach Leo, how's everything going today?
Coach Fernando, I've got to say, it took you stumbled on our academy name. I was getting worried.
Man.
I'm like,
I know.
Has he forgot our name?
I didn't practice this week.
Didn't practice this week. That's okay. That's okay. But you picked it up, so it's all good.
There we go. There we go. Progress, right?
Yes, progress. And speaking of progress, so yeah, it's been an exciting week. Well, a changing week, shall we say, from the last time we recorded, in the sense that the UK, well, specifically England, has gone back into a national lockdown. So We've been in a lockdown since yesterday, midnight, which means, unfortunately, all youth sports, including soccer, football, has been suspended for a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 4 weeks without any personal access to my players. So we are transitioning our training to online, which we done in the first lockdown right. Number 1. So yeah, a little bit of a break, I guess, from on the field. However, we're going to do our best to keep consistent in helping our families off the field. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm hoping that doesn't trend this way in the US, but that kind of happened the first time around. Things started locking down in Europe first, and then things sort of locked down over here. So, maybe a little word of caution to our families out there watching, just be careful, take care of yourself, do what you need to do, social distance, all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
But let's dive in, let's dive into today's episode, where we're talking about building confidence, right?
Our favorite topic.
We love confidence because it's so important, right? And I don't want to get into why it's important, how it's important. Like it's just important. We need to have confidence. Without confidence, we can't be our best, right? To be our best, we need to be confident. So today we're specifically talking about 5 steps that players out there can take to improve their confidence, to gain more confidence. And so, Coach Leo, before we dive into those 5 steps, what are your thoughts on just the importance of confidence for especially for youth players coming up?
Everything. I think there's two key things to success, I believe. Number 1 is discipline. I think if you can have discipline, you will be successful at whatever you're doing. And discipline doesn't mean solely, I don't know, for a player being disciplined to your training, right? Discipline could mean being disciplined to what you eat, what time you go to bed, to everything, right? Discipline's a big area. Right. And the second thing is confidence, because confidence is huge. Like confidence, when you build confidence in yourself, and more specifically self-confidence, you become a different person, right? And those certain situations where you struggled with before, when you start to build that confidence, everything becomes easier.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we're going to go into the 5 steps, but one very key thing to building confidence is getting outside your comfort zone, okay, and doing things that aren't always safe, so to speak. Okay, so getting outside your comfort zone, challenging yourself and testing yourself. So for example, for a soccer player, this could be playing or against better players.
Yeah.
All right, or on a better team.
Right.
You know, challenging yourself where you're not going to be the star player, but there's other players that are better than you, and now you've got to test yourself. And if you do achieve success, then you're going to feel confident in yourself that you've overcome something that you thought maybe you couldn't overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's absolutely true. And I think that relates perfectly into one of the steps that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But yeah, I totally agree. Getting out of your comfort zone is huge. So without further ado, let's jump into the first step here, Coach Leo. So the first step is really about, to me, it's knowing what to do.
Yeah.
Right. I think learning the game, learning your position, learning the fundamentals, knowing what to do is first and foremost. And I know that sounds very basic because it is, but really, if you think about something and you don't know what you're doing, right? You don't know what to do. It's really hard to have confidence to then go out there and try to do something when you don't know what you're doing. Right. So I think step one is really just about knowing what to do. What would you say about that, Coach Leo?
Yeah, no, 100%. Knowledge is key.
Yeah.
Knowledge in knowing. I'll give you an example. So my first year when I was living and working in the US, I had to coach a group of 2 to 3 year olds. Now, I had never coached that age group before, and I was only at that time 23, 24 years old. So I was young. I was a young coach myself, and I was coaching kids that, let's be honest, can't really do much.
Right. Right. They're very little.
They're very little, exactly. So the type of coaching you have to do is completely different to, say, a team coaching.
Sure.
So at first I was terrified, right? Terrified. The first time, parents started arriving with their kids, I was like, what do I do?
Right.
Right. You've got little Jimmy arriving on mummy's arms, and then she puts him down, and you look at the kid and you're thinking, okay, what do I do now?
Right. Right.
So I felt terrified because I didn't know how to work with that age group. Right. And that's where knowing what to do comes into place. Right. But over time, after a lot of failure, a lot of terrible sessions, a lot of sessions that I felt, I want to go home. Those experiences, believe it or not, and sometimes you think to yourself, this is rubbish. But those experiences make you stronger. And that is what builds knowledge and knowing, because what happens is you start to get stronger, and then the more you do something, then you start to feel confident. Okay, you start to feel confident because you experience that uncomfort at the beginning, right? And then the more you do it, then you start to realize, okay, this has worked. Next session, I'm going to do that again. And this is something we're going to talk a bit more on. Okay.
Right.
And then you slowly start to grab data or knowledge of different things that are working. And then you just repeat it. And then your confidence starts going up to the point where it feels natural. Okay. And that example as a coach can be used as a player, right? If you're doing something on the field which is working, okay, then just repeat that.
Yeah.
And that's how you build knowledge, because right, that situation is about to happen. This is what I done last time and it worked. I'm going to do it again to get the same result.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story, by the way. That's a great story. I think any coach can relate to a similar time, especially working with really young kids. You know, it is definitely very different, and it can be a little if you haven't done it before, like, oh, what do I do with these little guys, right? It's tough at first, for sure.
It was terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah, you're like, how are parents trusting me with their 2-year-olds right now? I don't know about this. Yeah, no, I hear you. And you made a really good point about gaining the knowledge takes some time to learn.
Yeah.
And that, like you said, that's something we're going to talk about more in a little bit, but taking the time to keep trying different things, and that's how you learn, by actually messing up. And you said you failed miserably many times, right? But that's how you gain the knowledge. Yeah. Right? That's how you know what to do eventually you'll know what to do. You need to go through the process of not knowing what to do and learning and failing, and learning and failing and right? And it's a constant repeating cycle. So knowing what to do, I don't want players to think like you just need to know. Like, you're not born knowing what to do in a soccer game. No one is born knowing what to do. But over time, you'll start knowing what you should and shouldn't be doing on the field, whether that means with the ball in possession or when your team's defending, where should you move, right? You'll learn these things as you go.
And so I just want to touch a little bit on that. The moment I knew I had improved was the moment I then looked at another coach, which was in the similar position as me at the beginning, the first time they're working with that age group. And then I looked at that coach and I said, right, he should be doing this, or he should be doing that. And that moment I realized, you know what, like, that experience has served me, because I could then step in, take the session, and I was comfortable, because I knew this is how that kid is going to react. This is what that kid's going to do. This is the energy I should be putting into it.
Right.
And that is the moment that I started to build confidence, because I looked at him and I go, right, that was me 2 months ago.
Yeah. And that's exactly the same, I believe, for players. As a player, maybe you're 10, 11, 12, 13, however old you are as a player, you can probably go to a game of watching 5 or 6-year-olds or younger players, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I know what to do better than they do, right? I know what they don't know, right? But it's because you've had the time to learn, to grow, to mess up. Exactly. So very similar, I think, to the players in that sense.
Yeah.
And the second step, after knowing, really having the knowledge, knowing what to do, over time you gain that. Then it's also about being able to do what you need to do, right? So having the ability to do that. So it's step one is knowing what you need to do. Step two is being able to do it and do it well, right? So for players on the field, that may mean technical ability, right? You may know what you need to do on the field. You may understand, where the ball should move in certain moments of the game, or where you should move in certain moments of the game. But if you don't maybe have the technical skills, or you don't have the ability to do those things that you're supposed to do, it's hard to gain that confidence. So I think it comes down to also having that ability, which, to the point that we just made before, that also takes time, right? That also takes a lot of practice, a lot of failure, a lot of learning. But you need to get to a point where you have those skills and those abilities to do what you need to do.
Yeah, 100%. And you build that through just doing, as you very briefly said, just doing it, doing it. And then, even though you might not feel that it's happening, but you will get stronger.
Yeah.
Because your confidence starts to grow. Even though at the moment you feel like an absolute failure.
Yeah.
You feel like you're not learning anything, you're not doing, but you are gradually growing. And then you become able to do certain things. And that's when you start building a skill.
Yeah.
For that experience.
And that's huge what you said about sometimes you don't feel like you're improving or gaining that ability. But you actually are, right? Sometimes you feel like maybe you're not learning or it's just hopeless, but you actually are just by doing it. It may take you a little bit longer, or that maybe for whatever reason, that day is just, it's a slower process, but the doing it, even if you feel like it's not getting you better, it probably is, right? Just by simply doing.
Yeah.
So that's a really big point that I think a lot of players need to understand, is that you won't always be able to do things right away. Things that you aren't able to do right away, those are the things you should focus on, because it'll help you grow and gain that confidence over time.
Yeah. I think something I want to add, obviously, Coach Ben, who's our coach.
Yes.
The word he always uses is scrappy. Right. So sometimes we look to be perfect in certain things, right? And we only think we've made progress once something feels perfect. But if you're scrappy, which is the point that, it's not perfect, but you're doing it anyway, even if it doesn't feel perfect. And then you'll get to the point where then you can make it perfect.
Coach Leo, you've spoken to my heart just now. That's something that I needed to hear personally right now. I need to have that do it mentality a little bit more sometimes. I can be that type of coach that likes things perfect in a certain way. But more often than not, if I just do it and I'm more scrappy about it, like you said, I'll gain that confidence in time and I'll perfect things in time. But you can't just expect to do something and have it all ready, have it all perfect, have it all figured out. You just need to do it. The importance of action is huge.
Yeah.
But moving on to step number 3 in our 5 steps to gaining more confidence is self-belief. And I think this one might be the biggest one out of all of them. Having the mental self-belief to knowing that you can do what you're supposed to do, right? Because if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in your abilities, if you don't believe you can do something, the rest really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? It really doesn't matter unless you truly believe in yourself, in your ability, in what you're doing. You have to have that self-belief. Without that, the rest doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%. I think all these points we're making, if you don't have that belief, then you can't really implement anything else. Because that self-belief is what's going to make you act on. Now, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because self-belief can have a connection with fear, right? So fear and self-belief. If you can have a belief in yourself, but sometimes fear prevents you taking that next step into something. And that is something we can talk about in another episode about fear. But self-belief is huge, right? And if you look at the most successful people in the world at any field, but obviously more specific in our industry in soccer, and I can think about one coach in particular, which is Tottenham Hotspur's Jose Mourinho. That's a guy that has massive self-belief in himself, right? So, some people say he comes across very arrogant, but to be honest with you, I think it's more he just believes in himself, right? He believes that he's going to turn this team into a winning team. Okay. And when you get to that conviction where you believe in yourself so much, I believe then it becomes contagious, because other people start seeing, right, this guy's getting results, I'm going to copy what he's doing.
Right.
And that's really how you become a leader on your team, right? You lead by example. But that example starts from having a belief that you're going to become a winner, that you're going to become a good player, that you're going to become that standout player on your team. And everyone else is going to look up to you and want to be you.
Yeah, that's huge. I love the word you use there, conviction. You need to have conviction. And for maybe some younger players that don't know that word,
that's why I got a dictionary here.
My man, you were studying before. I was like, what is he looking at? He's getting his words ready. I got it. Conviction, though, that is a great word. And if you don't know that word, go Google it. It's a great word. But basically, it means you are fully convinced, fully involved in what you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're doing. You believe in it 1,000%.
Yeah.
And that is, it's so true for anything that you want to achieve. You need to have that conviction, that belief that you can and you will, right? You can and you will. Not just that you can, but you will do it, right? You will get it done. You will achieve those goals. You will do whatever you set your mind to. Having that conviction is huge. I think it's the center of everything else that we're talking about, like you said.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, if that's not at the center of your core of your thinking, that self-belief isn't 100% solid, it's harder to achieve all those other things that we were talking about.
100%.
And so I think if players are going to start anywhere, it's starting with that self-belief.
Yeah. Good.
And so moving on
to it's simply an agreement with yourself.
Oh, I like that.
Right. If you agree with yourself that you're going to do it, then you do it.
And you have everyone has that conversation with themselves, or that voice in their head about those things, and that's where you need to have that conversation with yourself of like, no, I know I can do this, and I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it takes a little bit of knowing yourself, like knowing, the things that you like and what you're good at. It's being self-aware, so that in your mind, okay, I like this thing, I'm good at it. All right, I can achieve these things. I know I can. Right. And then that's where that self-belief takes off.
Yeah.
All right. So I think it also has a little bit to do with being aware of yourself, what you like to do, what you're kind of good at, understanding yourself as a player as well.
Exactly.
For example, let's give players a more concrete example. If you're a really great dribbler already, right? You might be thinking to yourself, okay, I'm a pretty good dribbler. I know I can have good success in 1v1s, right? Now it comes down to having the self-belief that you can be the best 1v1 player in your league, for example, right? Like, you have that ability, but now it's taking it to another level, having that self-belief that you can be the best in your league, right? That you can take on any player on any field and beat them 1v1, right? Having that self-belief, that conviction of, I can do this against anybody. It doesn't matter who, I will beat them 1v1.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's where everything takes off, having that self-belief.
Correct.
But let's move on to step 4. Step 4, Coach Leo. You ready for it?
Always.
There's
the belief. Always.
There it is.
I'm always ready.
Oh, I love it. Great segue. So step 4 to gaining more confidence here. We're talking about now having the experience and the repetition, right? So I think we touched on this earlier a little bit of, you have to gain experience. You have to get the repetitions. You have to get the practice in. You have to go through the process of learning, and then you have to get the experience. And then you have to get the repetitions. You have to get the repetitions. You have to get the repetitions. You have to get the practice in. You have to get the repetitions. 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 You of failing, of learning, of failing. And that's the more you experience something, the better and more confident you're going to get at it, right? In general.
Yeah.
So, playing in your first soccer game, you may not be as confident as playing in your 100th soccer game or football match, right?
Yeah.
So I think experience and repetition has a lot to do with the level of confidence that you have as a player as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But without actually getting outside your comfort zone and experiencing those things, you can't build confidence, right? So if you're to take an example away from soccer, right? If you want to meet the right girl, what do you have to do, Coach Fernando?
I don't know. Tell me, Coach Leo.
You have to get outside and meet people.
Really?
Exactly. So, but obviously not everyone is comfortable with that.
Right.
Okay. But it's not going to come to you. You have to get outside your comfort zone and go and look for that person you want to be with. Okay. And this is the same for footballers who have a dream of playing at the pro game. The pro game isn't just going to come to you. You have to understand that you have to create a lifestyle, and you have to get outside your comfort zone and do things or sacrifice things in order to get to that level. You might have to sacrifice nights out with friends because you have a game the next morning, or less playing on the PlayStation or the Xbox and more training by yourself, eating right, making good food choices. All of these things are getting outside your comfort zone. All of these things are experiences that then make you stronger, make you more confident, and push you towards your goal.
Yeah, 1,000%.
If you start seeing results as a result of your sacrifice, then you're going to repeat them, right? Because it's working. Like when Coach Fernando goes to the gym and, he starts to build a strong six-pack, and then he looks at himself, he takes a selfie in the mirror, he starts seeing results. He's like, this is working. I'm going to carry on doing it. But the moment he starts to see a big beer belly, he's going to be like, right, this isn't working. I'm just going to quit.
Right. Coach, how did you know I take selfies of myself? I don't know. I haven't shared those with anybody. I haven't told anyone about those, man. Come on.
I know your type, Coach Fernando.
I don't know what that means. I'll let it slide though. No, but you're 1,000% right. Getting back to the point, it comes down to taking the action, right? And we talked about this before. Taking the actions, whether it is to get outside your comfort zone or not, it doesn't matter. It's taking the action. You have to take action. If you never take the action, you never gain the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. If you never try to take a shot in your game, you never gain the experience of shooting or scoring on goal. Right. If you never take action to shoot that ball, you won't gain that experience. You won't get better at it. And so to gain confidence at becoming a goal scorer, you need to start shooting. You need to start taking your chances at goal, right? In games, take your chances. It's just one example. If you never take that action to get out of your comfort zone, maybe you're uncomfortable shooting because you're not confident in it yet. But if you never take that action, you'll never grow. You'll never gain that confidence.
Yeah.
And so it's like a weird cycle of taking action and learning and growing and then gaining confidence.
Yeah.
Right. But it has to start with taking the action. And then once what you said was, once you see what's working, what's gaining that confidence, what's helping you get better, then having the repetition about it, repeating those actions, right? Doing those actions over and over and over and over and over again, because you know that's going to help you get better.
Exactly. Just repeat what's working.
Yeah, huge.
You know, why,
I love it.
Why change it?
I love it. I love it. And then the last step that we talked about here was celebrating our wins and acknowledging our progress.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, what this means is after you've taken that action, you know, acknowledging the small little wins along the way and noticing the progress. So I'll go back to the example of a player that isn't confident shooting at goal. So we know that they have to take action. They have to start shooting on goal, right? That's where it has to start. And the small win there could be after their first game of shooting on goal, they took 3 shots. They took 3 shots on goal. In the game, in any game before that, they haven't taken any shots. The small win is just that they took the shots.
Yeah.
Celebrating the fact that you took your chances at goal. You had 3 chances at goal and you took every single one.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge win for that player, right? And taking the time to acknowledge that progress. Because what happens is that now leads to the next action. You're now going to be more motivated to try it again. The next game. So the next game, maybe you'll be a little more aggressive in your shooting. Maybe you'll take an extra chance.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking 3, maybe you'll take a 4th or a 5th shot on goal. And then maybe one of those goes in, right? And then that's another victory we celebrate. And the cycle sort of repeats slowly, right? And you start to build momentum. And then the confidence just keeps coming in slowly but surely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, celebrating your wins is something I don't particularly do enough of, but it's really, really important because that as well builds motivation, right? Recognizing when you've won and then celebrating your victory. Okay. Yes. Now victories come in all shapes and sizes. You know, some could be really big victories, some could be really small ones, but I think the most important thing is try and celebrate both, right? Celebrate the small ones because the small ones then turn into big ones.
Exactly. That's huge. That's huge. The small ones turn to big ones.
Yeah. The small little wins that you have will then become big wins.
And that's the whole idea of a player shooting for the first time at goal. That's a very small victory. But that eventually becomes a player actually scoring one day. And that becomes a bigger victory. Yeah. Right. So like you said, it's the small wins that turn to big wins.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think something we don't tend to do, or we do tend to do, just to say, is we don't appreciate those small ones. You know, we take them for granted. But if we celebrate them as well, then like I said again, you know, they become big. And also you become more motivated because it's like, right, I've done something well. Let me celebrate that doing well. Okay. Because what you've done, maybe not everyone can do, or not everyone has achieved it, no matter if it's a big win or a small win. So acknowledge them and celebrate them, because that's what motivates you and that's what drives you to keep growing and getting better as a player.
Yeah, that's going to motivate you to take the next action.
Correct. Again. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you're a player, for example, you're always starting on the bench and suddenly you've played, I don't know, maybe over half of the game, that's a win. Okay. Because you've gone from being a sub to now starting and playing half a game. Now, the next thing, what can we do? Can we then play maybe the entire game? You know,
right.
And we build slowly.
Right. Exactly. It builds on itself. it's that cycle that I was kind of that weird cycle of taking action, celebrating, seeing the result, enjoying it, and that sort of motivates you to then take the next action.
Yeah.
Or to repeat the action, right? Maybe it's a repetition thing.
Yeah.
But it starts with taking the action, seeing the wins. If you don't celebrate the wins or you don't acknowledge it, you don't get that spark of motivation. Right. And so that's what we're talking about here, is enjoying those victories so you can take the next action.
Correct. And I want to touch on one more thing that we have a tendency to do, in that when we work so hard for something, no matter if it's a small or big win, we achieve it, we celebrate it, and then we stop.
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, we worked hard, we achieved it, and then that's it. Most important thing is try and build from it, right? Don't just stop there. You know?
Yeah.
Can we grow?
That's a really good point, because that's something personally that I know I struggle with. Like when something goes well and it looks, I enjoyed it, whatever. Yeah. For some reason, I'll tend to be like, okay, that's done. Let me do something completely different.
Yeah.
Right. And it's about, like you said, building on it slowly over time. Take the action, see the result, enjoy it, and keep building on it. Take the next action.
Exactly. And that's how confidence is built.
Yep. Yep. And so I think what we're trying to get at here, a big pattern that I've noticed in our conversation today, is that this confidence is not it's not a light switch that you can just turn on one day. Confidence does not just happen. Confidence is something that you build over time. You build over actions, over failures, over experiences, over repetitions, right? Over all the things that we talked about today.
Correct.
It happens over time. It's not a light switch. And confidence is a fluid type of feeling. It's not something that can just happen.
Yeah, exactly. You build little by little.
Yep. Yep.
But the rewards to it is immense.
Yeah, because like we said at the beginning, confidence is everything. It's everything. I'm sure you've heard that. That's the same before. Confidence is everything. And once you have a certain level of confidence, things just start becoming easier for you.
Correct.
And you continue to build that confidence over time.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, because you can still gain even more. Once you feel like you are confident, you can still continue to build on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
very important.
Yeah, Coach Lee, I think that was great. So let's recap our 5 steps that we had for the players. And you correct me if I got them wrong here, but step 1 we have is knowing what to do, having the knowledge, right? Gaining the knowledge. Step 2 is about now gaining the ability, right? Gaining maybe the technical skill, for example.
Yeah.
And having the ability to do those things. Yeah. Step 3 we had was self-belief, right? Mentally believing in yourself.
Yeah.
Step 4 we had experience, right? Gaining experiences and gaining the reps, having the repetitions, getting the practice in. And the last step that we had was celebrating the wins, celebrating the victories. Because if you do that, that builds into the next action, right? And so I think these 5 steps are just a little almost framework for players or anyone to think about how they can start gaining more confidence in what they do.
Yeah, and what we shared today isn't just for players. Like, it's, parents suffer from a lack of confidence as well.
100%.
So if you're a parent watching, you can definitely take these 5 steps and implement it into your life. Whatever you're doing, it doesn't specifically have to be sport related.
No, not at all. And that's a great point. You know, these are things that can be carried over to different fields or different people.
Yeah, awesome. Loved it.
All right, Coach Leo. So as we begin to wrap up our 18th episode, I believe.
18.
Yeah.
It was a great episode as well.
Yeah, we're building slowly but surely, Coach Leo, and we're building our confidence with these episodes as we do more.
Yeah, it's a great thing you brought that up, because if you look back at like the first couple that we done, we didn't know what to do.
And I'm sure you could see a difference.
Yeah. However, now, because we've done so many, right, we know how we're going to structure this episode. We know what we're talking about. You know, we plan it, and it just flows more smoothly. But that comes because we're confident now at doing it. But at the beginning, if you watch our first one, we're probably there mumbling. We didn't even know our introduction yet. we didn't have a name for the podcast, nothing.
Right. But that's such a great point about going back to just being scrappy, like you said before, just taking the action, just doing it, and slowly you'll build on that.
Correct.
Yeah, great stuff, Coach Leo. Coming up, if you guys want to get in contact with us before we close the episode, we will have our contact information here. Please reach out to us with any questions, or if you just want to connect with us and follow what's going on in our academies, please follow us. We'll leave all our information down here. We're always looking for suggestions on things that players and families need help on. So if you have any topics or anything that maybe you struggle with or you need some help on, please message us. We will gladly get back to you with any questions that you have.
Yeah, and subscribe to the channels.
Don't forget that piece.
I knew you were gonna forget that bit.
Hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the follow, and share this with other players or families that might also find this helpful for them.
That's it. Absolutely. Here to help.
That's it, man. All right, Coach Leo, it was a pleasure.
Excellent. I'll see you next week, Coach Fernando.
You too. Take care.